All right, howdy. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, today we will be discussing your retirement plan for the future and what exactly you're going to have to do and say and kind of just go on forward in the future to make sure you can get as close to your dream retirement as possible. So the first thing we're going to do is look at your client profile. So we have Jim Smith and Sally Smith. So Jim, right now, y'all are both married, obviously, both employed, with an income of $102,000 a year, and for Sally, an income of $120,000 per year. Sally's a business owner, which will help out with your retirement, since you'll be able to sell those assets off. But let's go to your goals, which is probably the most important thing. Your goals are, for Jim, he wants to retire between the ages of 62 and 65, and for Sally, between 60 and 63, with retiring together being like an imperative of yours. You are somewhat willing to work a little bit longer, which will be important, but we'll get to that later. For your goals, for your like living expenses and stuff, as your most important goal, you want $80,000 a year. The next highest goal coming up is being able to travel, which you would like a budget of $20,000 a year. You also want your health care provided for about $10,000 a year. And below that, at a priority of 7, you have your nephew's college fund and a new car, which is $10,000 one-time payment for the nephew and $35,000 every 5 years for the new car. All right. And your last couple goals are a boat at a priority of 4 for $45K once, charity at 8, a higher priority for $8,000 a year, provide for your family for $5,000 a year, and then university at alma mater. So Sally wants to go to college again. That's $100,000 one time over 4 years. All right. So moving on to the assumptions we had to make for you two clients. To begin with, I'd like to stress that nothing is guaranteed in the world of finance and retirement and everything like that. We don't know for sure how the market will run, but that's why we have to make some assumptions sometimes. For example, we have to assume what your returns are going to be, what you're willing to risk, such as like your risk tolerance. So for y'all, I went ahead and put your risk tolerance around average. Like with the assets you have and the income you have, I kind of determined that you would have probably a risk tolerance of around 50, which is like right in the middle. A very balanced budget, willing to risk some, but not so much to where it could be detrimental to you in your retirement. Most people fall somewhere between the range of 40 and 60 on the risk tolerance, with less than like 1% being on the less than 20 or higher than 80. For an appropriate portfolio, well, we're going to go with a balance 2, which will have a 54% stock, with an average return rate of 8.56%, which I feel is pretty safe with your current assets. With the original plan y'all gave me and the times you wanted to retire and your incomes and everything like that, the likelihood of successfully retiring with all of that was 0%. However, it's not all over. Thankfully, I have some changes that might not be the most exciting to hear, but it should be able to let y'all retire comfortably and has a very high rate of success. The biggest change I made was raising the age in which you retire. So rather than retiring somewhere between 62 and 65, I'm going to have Jim retire at 67, which is an extra 2 years on your upper range, which I know is a long time, but it's very important because that'll put you at your full retirement age, which will give you full Social Security benefits, which over time will be extremely valuable in your retirement. Of course, this also impacts your wife's age. She'll retire at the age of 65, so she will receive some Social Security benefits, but not all of them. As far as your basic living expenses, I kept them at 80,000%. They were your top priority. I was not going to move those at all. Travel took a small hit of $2,000 a year, which I think is doable. It's a small amount, so you still have $18,000 every year to travel. still a lot of money, but to retire and have that 80,000 in living expenses with your current assets, you had to take a little hit there. Charity unfortunately took a pretty big drop. You wanted to donate, I believe, 8,000 originally, and I reduced that down to 2,500. And I know it was very high on your priority list, but I had to make some pretty drastic cuts to ensure that you could still retire and travel. And I felt like your income and your traveling were your two highest and the most important to you. New car, 15,000 every 5 years. Some other suggestions: you could up the price, but maybe get a new car every 8 years or maybe every 10. Just wear out those cars a little longer. Getting 5 cars every 5 years seems a bit excessive, but if you want to do that, the budget can allow for about 15K. Since the college for your nephew was a 7 and pretty important to y'all, and since it's a one-time payment, it's actually pretty easy to fit in the budget. We'll have the full amount for that. On the flip side, though, your family funds, since it's a recurring thing again, I moved it down to 2,000, and I had to get rid of the boat and the college. The college, $100,000. That's a lot of money to leave there, and you just don't have it. You just don't have it at your current income. Yeah. This new plan increases the likelihood of success from 0% to 77%. Much better, I would say, in my opinion. And how we take action. Well, you're going to have to move a lot of where your assets are currently held into different kinds of accounts. So, for example, we're going to move them from intermediate term bonds, long-term bonds, large cap growth stocks and mid-cap growth stocks, and move them to cash and cash alternatives, short-term bonds, some international developments, small cap stocks, things of that nature. And that should just increase your chances of success and lead you to nice, enjoyable retirement. Some other suggestions: if you were willing to take a hit to your month or your yearly income from 80,000 to 72,000, we could include a lot more. That would actually make a very big difference to your other wants and needs. With that change, you would be able to go ahead and hit your full charity donations, and as well as also have a boat if you so want. That is, though, $8,000 less a year. So in the end, those decisions are up to you. But because that was your highest priority, I didn't want to mess with it, and I kept it the same. But yeah, that's your retirement plan. Let me know if there are any changes or any other suggestions you'd like to hear about or anything you didn't understand. Thank you.